Hi everyone, let's talk about the last part of your paper. So after you have written in your final equation, your Desmos regression line, showing your fit, maybe you've done a second math process to answer a second research question, then all of you have the conclusion part of your paper. So the first thing that we do is we restate our research questions. We remind our audience what did we set out to explore in the first place. And you can just copy and paste that from the beginning of your paper where you wrote it up here. And so we're reminding our audience, remember audience, this is what I set out to consider. And guess what? The second part is sharing your key findings. I had a colleague in Prague that said ATFQ, answer the question. And he really just wanted to emphasize to his students, don't leave your paper without directly answering the questions that you set out to answer. So the first question I had was there an underlying pattern? And I can answer that with my B value. I saw an underlying pattern and I was able to calculate the equation of it. And my B value was 0.75, indicating that however far it is away from 1, the B value indicates that each song had approximately 75% of the number of listens as the one ranked immediately higher than that. I could also say a 25% decrease, and that's how much are we increasing or decreasing from the number 1, which would have been 100%. I can also answer my second question, and I was looking in my second question at do any songs overperform or underperform the model, or what would have been predicted. So I saw that I had one data point here that overperformed and one data point here that overperformed, which I did write about when I did the math, but I can just repaste that in, make it a little shorter, make sure I talk about overperformance and underperformance and what I saw. The very last thing is limitations and questions for further study. There's 3 parts to that. The first is imprecision with the data collection itself. So think about the numbers that you were collecting. For instance, a lot of you did Google Trends. Did Google Trends round things, their measurements, or was it exact to like 30 decimal places? And so when they said something had a Google interest of 32, what does Google actually mean by that? And so in what ways was that data collection imprecise? Our data was also limited. So for instance, for Vlads, it was limited to the SoundCloud platform on a particular day in November 2019. And so remember what we talked about when we first talked about mathematical models. If I was studying a quadratic model with a tennis ball and throwing it up in the air and then trying to model how long it would take for it to hit my hand, what are the limitations of that? Well, one limitation would be a bird could fly through the window and grab it, and now our model is no longer applicable to the real world. So how is our data in general, our study, how is it limited? And last but not least, questions regarding further study. So how could you extend your study forward? If you had thousands of more hours to study, what else could you do with it? So that is the way that you answer your conclusion and your limitations and questions for further study.